Good day, all you recording enthusiasts. Today I've got another video that's probably on the border of being a rant. I don't want it to be, but because of the situation that at least that I've been the last few years, specifically the last 3 years, where it's been the worst, partially due to the pandemic, but it's been actually going on for quite a while, probably since people decided that when you buy a laptop and an interface, you are a recording engineer. So what is my rant? Well, first of all, I want to explain that my rant is actually to help myself because I feel like I need to get this out. And secondly, I'm hoping it's actually going to do some good to a few people that do want to venture into recording themselves or want to at least better themselves. Now, here's the situation. I get asked to mix, and lately more than I actually record. I get lots of mix and mastering requests. Now, I have turned down about at least 60% of requests in the last couple of years that I get. It's not because I'm so rich I don't need the money. It's really because of the quality of recordings, right? People record themselves. That's fine. I get it, especially because of the pandemic. We haven't been able to go to the studios we wanted to go to, or we just had to adjust somehow. And it's also a budget thing, of course. I get that too. And people actually do generally enjoy recording themselves. Having said that, I must now, when I get asked to do a job, request that I get the tracks to listen to evaluate beforehand, because sometimes it is often so bad that there is no point. There is nothing that I can bring to the table. And to save everybody the trouble, especially myself, of getting involved and then only to call up and say, look, I'm not going to do this. I ask for the tracks, I listen to it, and then I tell them why I won't if I don't do the job and what's wrong. So now I thought maybe I'd make a short video explaining some of the things that happen, what you might want to watch out for, what definitely helps when you're trying to get a third-party person like myself involved in your mixes. I'm hoping to show a way that will make things easier if you are unsure about your recordings or what the mix engineer would like to see or like to have when you're ready to deliver your tracks. Now, there are lots of things in YouTube. You can get all kinds of information. It's way too much for one video, but I just want to show my list of the biggest issues that I have with some of the recordings that I get. So I'm going to call this kind of the do's and don'ts of making recordings to deliver to your mix engineer. And I'll go through the certain instruments and certain things and hope this will do everybody a little bit of good. Let's start with the drums. Now, I know we can't all go to big studios and we don't have all the possibilities. A lot of people have to record in their cellars or in their rehearsal rooms. That's fine. And they don't even get a chance to listen to how they're recording because they don't have a control room. I know it's difficult, but one thing that comes up a lot is I'm getting these what I call stage recordings. What that means is I'm getting drums mic'd up like they see it on the stage. This means you've got a drum kit, you've got close mics, you've got a set of overheads, maybe in your cymbals and ride, and that's it. Well, the drum sound, an acoustic drum, needs good acoustics to actually sound good. On a big stage, you've got an advantage. You know, if you do a live recording, anybody that's done that knows that the space alone makes for a good sound if the room isn't horrible, of course. Now, delivering drum recordings without some kind of a room, be it a mic on the floor in the corner or up there, down there, wherever, or properly placed stereo mics, whatever. This makes it so hard to create a really good live sounding drum kit. Unless you just trigger it to death, then whatever. If you want to record good drums, put a mic behind your head, in the corners in the back, in the middle of the room, maybe on a figure 8 stereo pair or on an XY, whatever. There's lots of research you can do to find out how to get good drum room position microphones and get a lot out of your recordings just by adding some kind of microphone setup in the room. I've even had the case where I had a drum kit. I was recording a band actually in a cellar, And luckily, the bass player did not sing in most of the songs, or actually in any that we actually recorded. And his microphone was open and recording all the time. And that was good enough to use to get something out of the drum kit, to get a little bit more reflection, more life. And even you'll be surprised where you can put drum mics, room mics, just all over the place and get really, really good results. So try to get some kind of a good drum room recording, however possible. Next up, overheads. So back to what I was saying before. I get a lot of these stage recordings where people put, here's a overhead over here and another one up here and whatever. And that's how I saw so-and-so band do it live. Why is it not good enough for you? Live is not studio. In the live situation, people don't know, even though they see stacks of speakers on the left and stacks of speakers on the right, your mix engineer live is really not working in stereo. He is not panning your left side over here, your cymbals, and the right side over there, as he would not do with a guitar player. If you had two guitar players, one on the left side, one on the right side, if you panned them, well, the audience on the right side couldn't hear the left guitar player and vice versa. So you're kind of working in mono. So they just put the overhead mics to capture the cymbals as good as possible. I want the overheads to capture the whole drums and the cymbals. I want there to be good phase coherency, and it's another subject. I don't want to get into that because I could go on for hours. But for me, if you're unsure, the best position for recording overheads is the XY mic position. Google it. Lots of information out there. It starts like this. That's an XY, recording your left and your right. Or you can do this, recording your left and right. Or this, recording your left and right. I try not to get a little bit wider than, I don't know, what's that, 20 inches? Max. Actually, the head size is for me perfect. The width of your head is the perfect width for me for XY recording. The reason for this is it's not too wide. Okay, I can always pan it in if it's too wide. It sounds realistic, and the snare is more focused. I like to get a good snare sound out of the overheads, and the brilliance of the snare comes through the overheads. Your overheads mics are just not there to only collect the information of your metal cymbal sounds. They serve the whole drum kit sound. So if you're unsure, XY, if you've got great mics, big, large membrane condensers, you might want to place them up higher and maybe outside with XY if you can do it. But general rule of thumb, if you're not sure, just XY, you're safe to go. Hi-hat and ride. You'll be surprised at how some of the cheaper mics work on this. I'm saying cheaper because a lot of people think it's necessary to put small membrane condensers on hi-hats and rides, which is fine. They're great. Nothing wrong with them. Absolutely great. But there's a lot of these cheaper mics available for like $50. I'm not going to say from who. And these are really hyped, high-frequency microphones that really sound god-awful on things like hi-hat, and they rumble in the bottom, and they're painful in the high end, and I'm doing the weirdest EQing to get these things to even work any way possible. So what do I mean by cheaper mic? Well, an SM57 is not really cheaper than a €50 or $50 small membrane condenser, but it's a mic you get anywhere, you can use for anything, and it sounds great on the hi-hat, and it sounds great on the ride. It's a great mic for close miking, and in this case, we are close miking. So you don't need to get specifically noisy, painful condenser mics for things like that. Feel free to try things out. If you feel you have too much bleed from your microphones, especially your ride and overheads, feel free to try to tilt these microphones away from whatever's disturbing you. Let's say your hi-hat's here, your first tom is here, and you feel you're getting too much tom in this mic or whatever. Well, just mic the hi-hat up from another angle where it's kind of rejecting this thing. Or even, you don't have to record it like you see in all the cool pictures. You can put that mic in weird, crazy positions and it'll work just fine. The ride too, from the side, from the corner, from underneath, whatever it takes. Try it out. Toms. Now, what I can't say enough about toms is, take the time to tune these things. You gotta tune these things. If every tom sounds like it came from another drum kit from another era, something's wrong. Tune them. Hopefully you have the same kind of skins on each tom. Hopefully you know how to tune them. If you don't, get someone to help you. Watch a YouTube video, whatever. But try to get them tuned, because unless you do that, the only alternative is triggering, which is fine if that's what you want. then it's good for you. But what's the point? We can do it with a MIDI drum kit if that's all you're looking for, right? Tune your toms. It's really, really important. Also, with toms, don't put the microphone so close to the skin. I see people putting it literally just a couple centimeters or almost right on the skin with arguments like, oh, less bleed. It's not. Believe me, those other instruments are going to be almost just as close no matter how far you put it to your tom. You're going to get bleed. It's just the way it is. What does happen is you get more of a proximity effect, which can make it bassier, which is almost usually what you don't want. At least I don't. You can get more power and more transients out of individual close mics on the drums if you back them up a bit. And I mean like back them up sometimes. On the snare, I'm not afraid to go 10, 15 centimeters. It sometimes it's great results. Toms, I'll take them up 20 centimeters sometimes. Gets great results, so don't get so close. Snare drum, same thing here. Don't get so close. It's not necessary. I know it can be problematic when you don't have a lot of area or room to put the mic as you want, so you just got to get it in there somehow. Keep in mind, and I always try to explain this to drummers, we're in a recording situation. You've got the chance to do things again and again and again. It's not a live situation. Sometimes you have to raise your cymbals to help the sound. You might have to move some instruments out of the way to help the sound, the recordings. Not your comfort. It might be a little bit uncomfortable, but you will come over it. And you've got a lot of chances to do things again and again to make it work. So if you can't get the mic in there, remove that one tom that you're not using anyway, or just back everything up so you can get in there, because you're there to make a recording. So you want the best sound. So you got to make some kind of a compromise. Now, having said that, putting the mic in not too close really, really helps. If you've got a couple of mics and you're not sure which one to use, put them both on. Try it. You never know. When it comes to the bottom mic, you're trying to get maybe a 90-degree angle. Like here's the top. So let's say you're going to come in like over the top of the snare skin because you've got no better position. Well, try to take your bottom mic and put it at 90 degree. Optimally, come from this side, because the best recordings I've ever got from snare drum is recording the top mic completely against the bottom mic, right? So that it's like one straight line. It is the optimal way if you got room to do it. Having said that, if you've got the top mic like this and the bottom one has almost no angle whatsoever, that is the worst. It can be fixed with software, but it is almost worthless. You can almost not use the bottom mic at all because the phase coherency will not be great. Even though we can kind of fix it, it's still just never going to sound as great as if you have at least a 90-degree angle or more. Kick drums. So it's gotten really popular in the last many years to put in PZM mics inside bass drums. Pressure zone microphones that we usually would use a long time ago for like conference recordings. You put on a table, it looks inconspicuous and does a great job. They have a lot less problem with phase issues, so they were great for recording drum rooms. You put them on the floor, you put them on the wall or whatever. They were really, really good for that. Now they're in bass drums, which is fine. It makes a great kick, tight smack sound that people love for live. And then they put another microphone on close to the outside. That's fine too. Again, if you're not sure, you can use multiple microphones. There's nothing wrong with recording that extra mic. It's you just got to be aware that there's going to be a little bit of phase issue that can be fixed as well. If you're unsure and you think you're missing something, maybe place another mic outside the bass drum, even by the beater if you feel like it's doing something. If you're unsure, just put a mic somewhere. Check it out. You've got nothing to lose. And if you don't have enough inputs, well, that's a shame. Now, let's go to the bass guitar. I'm a bass player myself, so this hits me right at home. And when I'm engineering stuff or mixing stuff, this is sometimes a painful issue for me. And I hate to say it, but bass players out there, tune your bass more often. Every time you stop recording, tune your bass. Your bass goes out of tune more than you think, and refer to your guide tracks or the other recordings. Be sure that you're in tune. This happens, yes, very, very much. Also, please provide a DI track as well as an amp, or just a DI, but not an amp track only. This is really miserable. Sometimes, and I know this, I've been there, bass players feel that they've created the best bass sound in the world and it cannot be modified or changed or the whole world falls apart. with their plug-in, with their setup, whatever. So they deliver a finished track with maybe the DI mixed in or just the amp as they want it. They don't want anything else. Here's all you're going to get. And that's what it comes down to. You're doing nobody any good. I'm sure you maybe have a great recording, but at least having the DI allows for the engineer, the mix engineer, to offer something else or do some great tricks that you might not be aware of that can be really fantastic for the bass. So please, if you insist on doing an amp recording, which is fine, include the DI. It's just better. If you feel like you need to record an amp because you've got something really special, please do, even if it's just to show what you're looking for. You might even make a note that this is not the final bass sound, but I'm kind of looking for this. And the mix engineer has an idea of what he can do to kind of go that way, because we're not mind readers. Now to the guitars. Here also, supplying a DI track is a great thing. It's a great thing if you can do it. You might have recorded a real amp, but hooking up a DI box in between and sending your direct signal to another track extra is not a mistake, because maybe the mix engineer can offer you something better. However, having said that, supplying only a DI is really horrible too. I get that a lot these days. I'm getting 8 tracks, 10 tracks of guitar. Here's the rhythm, solo, clean, whatever, all DI. I don't know what you're looking for. You can write on a piece of paper, but I still don't know what you're looking for. You might send me a MP3 of your favorite band's guitar sound. There's too many factors involved. I don't know how close I can get, but the best is if you, at least with a plugin, attempt to show me what you're looking for. Render all your tracks with plugin sounds or record an amp or whatever. Try to show me what you're wanting, your gain, how much gain you're looking for, the character of the sound you're looking for, because again, we are not mind readers, mix engineers. Recording guitars with effects. Let's say you have a chorus pedal or maybe a gain boost or a distortion. By all means, record that. If that's giving you a sound, by all means. What we do not need is your added reverb and echoes and stuff like that. Anything that we can recreate, probably better, in the mix process, leave it out. If you're unsure and you think you have something special you want to show, record it again, once with, once without, so at least we have an idea. Maybe we can even use it, probably not, but at least have the option available. It's a good idea just not to record with reverb or echo, because if I do something like, add compression, for example, to your already overly reverbed track, it's just going to get worse. Now keyboards, not too much that goes wrong here. If you can supply MIDI tracks, so that maybe the mix engineer can offer something else just in case. It's not really important though. But what is important is separate tracks for separate sounds. A track for your piano, a track for your strings, a track for your ukulele, whatever. Putting everything on one track is just a mess. And if you feel that the mix engineer is probably incompetent to mix the tracks in the levels you want to have it, then supply a track as well with the mix as you imagine it, but also the single track so that we can at least give it an attempt, right? Mono tracks. Is it a mono track? Is it a stereo track? Can you tell the difference? If not, figure it out. It's something to learn. Vocals. Now, this is the big one because I think vocals are agreeably the most important part of the song in rock, metal, pop. And what is happening today, and it's very disturbing, especially in the metal side of things, is the overuse of pitch correction. There's nothing wrong with using it. These are tools. We can use it, make things better. But when is good enough? Because sometimes vocals are getting so tuned that it just sounds unnatural, like a robot. You're cutting away like vamps in and vamps out of notes that are completely normal in the way people sing. Also, sometimes you don't want to be right on the note. Sometimes it's not a great thing. The worst thing is still the artifacts. When I can totally tell that it's been tuned, that's the worst ever. Noises, distortion, clips, cracks, whatever. It's horrible. It's really, really annoying. If you don't know how to tune well, and you can't find someone to do it for you, or you can't learn enough by watching tutorials, talk with your mix engineer. Maybe he's got a solution. Maybe he can offer something that makes things better. Or maybe you can offer one time a track where it's tuned to death, and one time where it's not tuned at all, so that we can at least go back and forth and make some natural sounding something out of it. It is a big issue these days, especially in choir. I had recently, I was giving 14 or 16 tracks of choirs, and they were all tuned so well, that as I turned on the other tracks, it didn't get bigger, the choir effect, it just got louder. And that's not what you're looking for. You want the effect of choir, not just volume. And when everything is perfectly tuned, that's what happens. And because vocals are so important, and like a guitar player would spend thousands of dollars on a guitar and an amp and a bass player as well, it's not a mistake for the singer to maybe invest a couple of bucks in a halfway decent mic. It doesn't have to be a thousands of dollar expensive mic. Having a dedicated mic preamp and mic is even more of a bonus. And if you want to make things better, there's some places you can actually invest money and it will make a difference. Having said that, I've made plenty of records. I've got some records on my wall here where I have recorded SM57 or 58 or SM7, and it worked well. The mic has to fit the singer, you know. It doesn't have to be an expensive mic. Okay, in all cases, I had a dedicated mic preamp, a very, very good one that did make the difference, definitely. A lot of these interfaces, the mic preamps are adequate at the most, but they're not great. So a dedicated mic preamp is worth investing in if you can do it. But in any case, you can be sure that your 50-euro Behringer interface and your 50-euro Behringer microphone isn't going to sound as great as you'd like it to sound. Now, having said that, I get weird sounding vocals, and after researching and asking the client what happened, I find out things like he couldn't read his lyrics, so he taped his lyrics to the wall and put his mic about right here to sing into. Well, if you put a piece of paper in front of your face and listen to what your vocal sounds like, well, that's what it sounds like in the mic, and there's nothing I can do about that. Having a decent recording area, or maybe a stand to hold your lyrics away from your face, not so close, and backing away from anything that resonates, walls, bathrooms, oh, it gets bad. I've had a lot of these recording in my living room with no furniture. Yeah, if you hear it, we're going to hear it too. That's just the way it goes. So pay a little bit more attention to that. Other things to keep in mind, what are dear to my heart, if you got a mono signal, record it on a mono track. Don't record on a stereo track. That's a complete and total waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space, of hard disk space, and it's just absolutely pointless. And if you don't know the difference, figure it out, learn it. Next up is, don't give me tracks with too much file information. It's unnecessary. Also recently, I've had this. Every single track was labeled first the name of the band, then the group of instruments it belonged to. For example, song, I'm on Fire, drums, hi-hat, tempo 137. I don't need to know this. Hi-hat, got it. I know it's not a guitar. This happens really a lot. And when you pull tracks out into your arrangement and you see this, it's just a mess. It's a visual mess because the tracks are named what the tracks are called automatically, and this is just a mess. So don't give us all that information. It's unnecessary. Having said that, do give us information on a piece of paper of the tempo of the song. That's great. That's really, really a big help. At the best, you might want to separate tracks into groups of like drums, hi-hat, drums, snare, bass, DI, bass amp, guitar, DI, guitar, rhythm, this kind of thing. You know, keyboard, strings. Okay, that's enough, but you don't need to get into detail. And on tracks again, label your tracks correctly. I say that because the new trend is to send a project full of tracks called Audio 1 to Audio 50. For some reason, it was too much trouble to name the files. Again, if you don't know how to do that, figure it out. There's lots of tutorials in every DAW out there of how to do that. Also dear to my heart, bouncing tracks from the beginning of the song to the end of the song. Unless you've worked out with your mix engineer who happens to maybe have the same audio workstation that you have, Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, whatever, and you can't send him your session and you have to send them individual consolidated tracks, then consolidate it from the beginning of the song to the end of the song, or at least to the end of the file. This is often just, I don't know why this happens, but I have to figure out myself where a file fits in the song, and that is just absolutely annoying. And then last up is exporting and bouncing files. Understand the difference between consolidating a file and doing an audio mix down. Okay? A consolidation or bounce is usually, almost always, the concept of you have a track with lots of edits or maybe fades on a thing, and you want to just make one file out of this with no regards to what's in your insert section or your mixer or your pan or your fader level, so that it's just one fresh track without anything else. A mix down is usually the opposite, or the other way. It is going through your inserts or your effects. It is being influenced by the level of your fader and your pan, how it's set up. You don't usually want this unless you're making, let's say, a mix of certain instruments into one stereo track, or you're printing certain tracks to make a final, like choir. This is the choir, take it or leave it. It's almost never a good idea to do audio mix down, and consolidating or bouncing is the better way to go. If you don't know the difference, do research it or ask me. I'll be happy to try to show you the difference. But this comes up so much. The reason it is a problem, let's say that every song, and I have had this many times, in every song, the level of the normal instruments, the drums, bass, basic guitars, is always different because it was always influenced by the fader. It was an audio export, not a consolidation. And it just made my life miserable. I always had to adjust, and I could never work quickly and efficiently. And this is a complete turnoff when you're doing a job like this. And lastly, once you've done this, you've bounced all your tracks, you've consolidated all your tracks, please listen to the tracks from beginning to end. This happens a lot as well. I send off a mix, and then somebody says, we're at mix 3. What do you have against the strings? Why can't you turn them up a little bit louder? And my comment is usually, what strings? Yeah, the strings we sent you. I have no strings. Nowhere in my tracks is strings. I download again to look if I made a mistake. I check again. I still have no strings. Oh, I guess we forgot. Yeah, you probably did. But if you were to listen to your own stuff, you might have noticed it. Something's happened. I get it. You forget or whatever. But don't assume that your mix engineer is just, against you, and he doesn't want to hear these things that you've sent him. Usually, if I don't include an instrument because I don't like it in the mix, I will say, here's a mix. I have left this out because I found it to be a problem. It didn't help the track. Please listen to it and tell me what you think. Okay, so that's pretty much my rant. I could go on for hours, I guess. But, I just want to get that out and let, people know what's on my mind a lot. If you got any questions, feel free to write me, make a comment or whatever, and pass it along. You can get in touch with me personally if you like. I'm always there to help if I can. So until next time, thanks for listening. Take care. See you around real soon. Bye-bye.